Hi, glad that you could check in. I would like to spend the coming 30 minutes or so introducing 20 points on how to pitch to business angels and VCs. So, who am I? My name is Andy Kars and I'm based in Stockholm in the cold Nordic country of Sweden. This is where I do most of my work, which is to provide advice to tech startups and large multinational corporations on lean startup, entrepreneurship and innovation. From time to time, I also advise on how to set up and run startup accelerator programs and what it takes to create dynamic startup ecosystems. I started out as an entrepreneur in the 90s, founding 4 companies, ending up selling 3. After 16 years abroad, I returned to Stockholm in 2003, and I've been very happy since working as an advisor, angel, and backstage catalyst. Okay, enough about me. What about you? What kind of mindset do you have? Are you a waterfall type of mind, or do you have more of an agile mindset? This is not unimportant because it sets the tone for the whole presentation that you will be doing. It usually becomes very clear after only a few slides what's your background and how you think. To work in a startup, you better have an agile rather than a waterfall mindset. Let's have a look at how they differ. In waterfall, you come up with all the detailed specifications up front. Then you build the product, and then you launch, and then your customers don't use your product as you thought they would, and then you crash and burn. This whole process may take months, if not years. In Agile, you start out by understanding the customer's problem and iterating designs to get closer and closer to a solution that solves a problem worth solving. Each iteration may take anything from a few days to a couple of weeks. There's a lot of testing and learning involved during each sprint, and the customer is an integral part of the whole process. In Waterfall, the customer only really shows up at the beginning and at the end of the process, while in Agile, the customer shows up all the way through from ideation, sketches, wireframes, mock-ups, all the way to launch. So really, at the end of the day, there's a world of a difference between waterfall and agile. Waterfall may be great when you're building something that you know will not change. Perhaps you've built a bridge across a river and now you need to build an exact replica under the exact same circumstances. But the more uncertainty there is in your project in terms of conditions and outcomes, the more you should lean towards agile. That's why agile, which is one part of lean startup, the other one being customer development, is so well suited for the type of work going on in a startup. If you cannot convey this type of mindset when pitching to investors, getting anyone who knows what it takes to run a startup on board your ship will prove nearly impossible. When you're pitching, you don't want to pitch. Sounds weird, doesn't it? But it's true. The idea here is that you want to be open and transparent in communicating the challenges that you have faced since starting your company and how your team has overcome those challenges. How have you gone about finding a problem worth solving, and how have you iterated towards building a solution to address that problem? And what has been your key learnings along the way? Take Dropbox as an example. Dropbox launched in 2008. At the beginning, they had some difficulty communicating their value proposition, which at that time was mainly text-based. Then, in 2009, they ran an experiment together with Commoncraft to instead communicate their value proposition using video. The results have been astonishing. Over 30,000 views per day, which has had a very positive impact on their conversion rates when onboarding new customers. Another experiment that Dropbox ran was to abandon Google AdWords that was resulting in a ridiculous customer acquisition cost of somewhere around $200 per user. And that's for a product that costs around $100 per year. Not a great customer acquisition cost versus customer lifetime value relationship. So what were they to do? Well, Dropbox opted to replace paid advertising and instead leverage their already loyal user base. They offered each and every user additional free cloud storage for every new customer that the existing user managed to attract to the platform. Suddenly, Dropbox were able to grow organically through a viral loop that cost them pennies on the dollar compared to the more traditional paid advertising campaigns that they have been running in the past. These are the types of learnings that you want to hear about as an investor, to show that your team knows how to experiment, measure, and interpret data and take actions that puts your startup on a path towards a repeatable and scalable business model. Okay, so now we got the mindset part covered. Many people who pitch start out by describing the problem and then the solution. Some forget to talk about the problem and simply show us the solution, which is a complete disaster since the investor has no idea what the solution is for. Although an important point, it's not the point I would like to make here. What I want to get at is that telling a story is far more memorable than just listing the problem alongside the solution. A story speaks to your emotions in a way that nothing else can. That's why we love going to the movies and reading novels. The great thing about stories and emotions is that it's a great trigger for your memory. From the time you were born, your mind has been wired to take in stories. So introduce the character. Take the listener through the drama the character has to face until that one sunny, beautiful day when the knight in shiny armor enters the stage and saves the day. With drama, I of course mean the problem, the character is your customer, and the knight in shiny armor is your solution. So even if presenting the usual problem-solution setup is okay, it's better if you can tell a story. After you've managed to hook your listener in the first minute by hopefully telling a story, now is the time to do a brief demo of your product. And when I say demo, this could be anything from hand-drawn sketches to a fully blown live product. At this stage, the investor understands the main benefits and who is the customer. Now they are ready to dig a little bit deeper to see what's under the bonnet. However, you don't want to get into a never-ending demo of each and every feature of your product. That will just make them yawn. Instead of listing all the features, you want to make it crystal clear what benefits the customer can expect to get from using your solution. These are normally a combination of saving time, making or saving money, or making the user feel good. So rather than focusing on features, you should be focusing on building customer value. Why? Well, it's because it's the only way to build a sustainable company. And I guess that's the reason why investors tend to invest in teams that build customer value and not features. When you're presenting, don't present things we already know. You have only a very short time to deliver your pitch, and you need to choose your words carefully. Presenting known facts such as staying up late makes you tired, or eating too much makes you fat, is a complete waste of time and usually just leads to people rolling their eyes back into their heads. Since there is an inverse relationship between the number of eyes that roll back and the amount of funding that you'll raise, I suggest sticking to presenting unknowns. You want it to be jaw-dropping and mind-bending stuff, not something your mama told you when you were 6. For sake of clarity, always present an assumption as an assumption and a validated fact as such. Don't lead your listener to think you have validated something when you haven't. This happens all the time. Entrepreneurs are known for living inside their reality distortion bubbles and suffering from a serious state of affairs called confirmation bias. With this I mean that the entrepreneur is only willing to take in what confirms his or her theory while completely disregarding anything that threatens it. This is not okay and in the long run detrimental to your business. If you say you have invented something that can make people bend a spoon using nothing but their minds, investors, and any other sane person for that matter, would like to see some form of proof or validation that this is indeed possible. In a startup, what it really comes down to is to increase your facts to assumptions ratio and to regularly communicate your progress towards that goal to your stakeholders. The more facts that you have and the fewer your untested assumptions, the lower the perceived risk. The lower the perceived risk, the more your startup will be worth, which means lower dilution for you and your team when you raise funding. Another thing entrepreneurs often do is to talk about the future as if it's already here. We have this and that, and we are this and that, hallelujah. Instead, present a milestone chart showing where you are today, what you learned in the past, and what you will focus on validating or invalidating in the future. What key metrics are you tracking right now, and what are you aiming for? That's what investors like to know. Plans and visions are great, but you don't want to go out fundraising exclusively on the back of that. This is not the year 2000, the end of the internet bubble, when it was possible to raise millions of dollars based on a PowerPoint presentation containing nothing but ideas, projections, and hot air. Today, it's much harder to raise funding without first showing significant traction. The only exception really are rockstar teams consisting of entrepreneurs with amazing track records. For example, I'm sure that if Elon Musk decides to start a new venture tomorrow, he will not have any problems raising funds. He could just scribble some notes on the back of a napkin and get millions of dollars the very next day. Sort of like Picasso back in the day. But you are not Picasso or Elon Musk. You have to show some data. What experiments have you done since starting up, and what have you learned from running those experiments? Can you show that you're moving in the direction of problem-solution fit and product-market fit? For those of you who are unsure of what problem-solution fit and product-market fit is all about and how you can measure it, I'll be doing another webinar on Introduction to Lean Startup, where I'll be going through these concepts in more detail. When you talk about the market, investors want to know what is your total addressable market, how fast it's growing, and how you're going to reach it. The world is not your total addressable market. Your market are those people that have the means to pay for your product, can access your product via the existing infrastructure, and that you can service given your existing business model and resources. Here is a basic example of a top-down, wild-ass guess. Let's say you aim to sell internet access in China. China's population is 1.4 billion people. There are 280 million Chinese that are going to get internet over the next 3 years. We'll get 5% of that potential audience, and each account will yield $100 per year. Doing the calculations, 1.4 billion people times 20% of the total market times a 5% success rate and times $100 per customer per year would produce a whopping revenue of $1.4 billion over the next 3 years. Let's compare that with a bottom-up data-driven approach. Let's say you do 10 sales calls per salesperson per day, and 5% of those calls convert to paying customers. You have 240 working days per year, and each sale, just like in the previous example, produces $100. We can then also hire 5 salespeople based on the resources that we have. We're just a startup. We're not a huge conglomerate. Doing the calculations, that gives you 10 calls per day times a 5% success rate times 240 days per year times $100 per sale times 5 salespeople. In total, that would produce a revenue of $60,000 in the first year. Quite a difference from the $1.4 billion over the coming 3 years. So, as a startup, you want to focus on bottom-up and wait with the top-down, finger-in-the-air type projections until you have plenty of relatively stable data to make projections from. At which time, by the way, you will no longer be a startup. When you start to reach out, you want to begin by attracting your early adopters. Early adopters are those who have the problem, know they have the problem. Either they have searched for a solution, or they might even have tried to hack a solution on their own, or they've gone as far as to prepay or pay for a solution, although perhaps they weren't very happy with that particular solution. Now, you want to tick off as many of these as you can in order to identify a good target group to start from. What you don't want to do is try to be everything to everyone. I see this all too often, and for a startup, it's a sure recipe for failure. Don't present 3 different products and 5 different target markets that you're going to go after from day one. Choose one target market and one product and focus on getting traction with that. If you don't succeed, you can pivot and try again. Trying to do too much too early will kill your startup. You simply don't have the time or resources to win all battles simultaneously. Startups are all about focus and building strength within one key area before moving on to the next adjacent space. Now we're getting to the part where you can talk about how you differ from competing offers that are out there. All too often I hear startups that say that they have no competition. Well, this can only mean one of 2 things. Either you're lazy and haven't done your homework, or there is no market for your product. Either way, it's not a good scenario to start from. What you want to present is a jobs to be done perspective, where you have identified a select few top pain points and how your startup is better than competitors in addressing those pain points. It's not enough to say you're better, bigger, and more beautiful. You need to be able to specify exactly how you differ from your competition. Luckily, there are numerous ways in which you can visualize this. For example, as shown here, using the blue ocean diagram, or you can use the classic competition matrix or a simple XY chart or spider diagram. It's really up to you. But be specific and make sure that what you present here matches your value proposition and elevator pitch that you will have communicated earlier. So, we've spoken about the problem and solution and your target market. From this, it would be very easy to fall into the trap of spending weeks doing detailed 5-year Pinocchio projections in Excel and presenting your results within quotation marks to investors hoping to raise funding. Rather than doing that, I would recommend that you instead define your go-to-market strategy. How will you attract users? Is it going to be via paid or earned media? Don't be afraid to offer detailed figures and media strategies at this stage. Also, depending on the phase your startup is in, you would want to pitch either from the perspective that you're focusing on improving user engagement, or from the perspective that you have reached problem-solution fit and you are now optimizing for customer acquisition. As you move closer to problem-solution fit, you will want to shift focus towards the beginning of the sales funnel. For every phase your startup is in, there will be one key metric that you will need to focus on. For example, for a software as a service business, getting churn under control is of key importance early in the game. Churn basically means if you have 1,000 customers coming in at the beginning of the month and 100 customers are leaving at the end of the month, never to return again, you will have had a monthly churn of 10%. If you ignore churn and continue to ramp up marketing and sales, all you're doing is digging yourself a deeper hole. Sales may improve, but at the cost of profitability. How you're working with key metrics is far more interesting to savvy investors than made-up Excel projections that are based on nothing but imaginary figures set far, far into the future. Since 5-year Pinocchio plans usually are part and parcel of the business plan, it's the same reason why people who work according to Lean Startup don't do business plans either. Instead, we choose to use quick iterative tools such as the business model canvas shown here by Osterwalder, the Lean canvas by Moria, or the Javelin board by Lean Startup Machine, or any other variation or mashup thereof. If you were thinking of writing a business plan, you need to ask yourself right now if you want to spend your time writing business plans and winning business plan competitions, or if you'd rather spend time doing actual business. Because if there's one thing we know for sure, it's the old Mike Tyson truth, that everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. The moment your business plan meets reality and gets first customer feedback, you can be sure to be proven wrong. So there's no better way, no leaner way, than to introduce the customer as early on in the process as possible and to learn as much as you can from them as fast and cheap as you possibly can. Really, what it all boils down to is for you to keep invalidating your assumptions until you finally get to validation. When Thomas Edison was asked how it felt to fail so often before he finally managed to create the light bulb, he answered, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." So go out and fail fast and fail often. Mark Zuckerberg has developed his own saying that mirrors this and which he's included as point 2 in the core values of Facebook. It goes as this: move fast and break things. The idea is that if you never break anything, you're probably not moving fast enough. I must say I kind of like that. Many teams say that their competitive advantage is rooted in their team's passion and dedication. Or hear this, they are hard-working. If you think about it, is there any team that would go up on stage and pitch and say, "We have no passion or dedication," or "We would like to build $1 billion company, but we're not really prepared to put in the hours to do so"? I don't think so. What you really want to show here are those aspects of your startup that other teams will find hard to copy. These could be things such as exclusive access to distribution, high organic search rankings, team with a unique know-how or insider information, the right type of celebrity endorsements, large network effects, key pilot customers, or even patents. These are all unfair advantages that are difficult to copy. Passion and dedication are not. Here is some more info on the topic of team. Don't build your executive team with lots of VPs too early. Build an explorative team that goes from focused execution to listening, reflecting, and learning, and back again within weeks. I'm sure you've all heard the old age wisdom that an investor rather invests in an A-class team with a B-class idea than a B-class team with an A-class idea. And this is true. It's not about the initial idea as much as it is about the team and the customer value that the team can build over time. You don't want VPs who know nothing but how to execute on a plan. What you want are explorers who immerse themselves in their customers' lives and adapt their solution to maximize customer value. You don't yet have a machine where if you put in $1, you get $2 popping out the other side. You're still searching for a scalable and repeatable business model. You need explorers, not vice presidents. Okay, here is one about presentation basics. Remember, your presentation is not supposed to be an eye exam. Use pictures to show relationships and talk to that instead of expecting your audience to read several bullet points of small text. Sometimes I even see people who put dark text against a dark background, making it even more difficult to see. If you can't read it, why put it in the first place? If you're sending a pitch, you can include more text. But if you want to engage a room full of investors, it's much better to go with pictures and then talk to them. Kind of the way I'm doing now. Just the same way that you would like the audience to see what you're presenting, you want them to understand what you're saying. So please avoid fancy words that no one really understands, like the flux capacitor generates 10 gazillion megaflips per second while in a transient non-thermal state. Instead, keep it simple. If your grandmother understands your pitch and wants to invest, and not because you're her grandchild, but because she wants to become a successful business angel, well, then you know for sure you're on the right track. Last but certainly not least, always close with an ask. What are you looking for? A new team member to join your ranks? A specific partnership to take you into a new market? Perhaps it's funding to hit a specific milestone, or perhaps you're looking to expand your advisory board to get help with those warm intros. Or maybe you're just looking for brutally honest feedback. Whatever it is, don't forget to include a clear call to action while showing what's in it for them if they do what you ask of them. So don't be like Mr. Bean. Instead, just ask. Well, that's it for now. If you liked the presentation, feel free to share the video. Or hook up with me on LinkedIn and leave a recommendation, and I'll send you a copy. Thank you so much for listening, and have a great day.